Our salute to Warriors continues with the very tall tale of Doug Atkins.
My first recollection of Doug Atkins was when we played the Bears in an exhibition game in 1965, and Skoronsky was offensive captain, and I really looked up to him. And so when he came to me before the game, he said, look, here's some things I want you to remember. Number 81 is Doug Atkins. He's 6'9", he weighs 265 pounds. He said, don't cut him. And if he falls down, you help him up and say, nice play, Mr. Atkins. Well, I started to laugh. And Skoronsky said, kid, this is not a joke. And I'm not kidding you now, because if you cut him on his knees, the first thing he's going to do is kill you, and then he's going to kill me.
For 17 years, Doug Atkins played defensive end in the NFL, leaving in his wake a trail of flattened quarterbacks and trampled blockers. In Chicago, under the strict tutelage of Coach George Hallis, Doug was a rebellious student, the kind who got A's on tests and F's in deportment, and took equal pride in both.
I was having a little weight problem, and someone suggested that I drink martinis, that they would dehydrate you. Usually I like to drink beer, you know, and give you a good appetite. So, I started drinking martinis, and, you know, I didn't have any weight problems, but they didn't tell me how drunk, how much trouble they'd make you get into. They forgot to tell me that.
Nobody expected Doug to be a normal practice person. I mean, nobody. It just didn't seem like he was going to practice like everybody else, especially after the season started and he started getting beat up a little bit himself. He just didn't feel like practicing. You just always felt like the best thing to do was just to say, Doug, go get the quarterback.
Doug Atkins was like a storm rolling over a Kansas farmhouse. He came from all directions, and all there was to do was to tie down what you could and hope he didn't take the roof. The legend of Doug Atkins, like the legend of the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot, often strains the bounds of credibility.
I saw him eliminate the entire Minnesota backfield. He put Brown and Mason out in 2 straight plays, and the following week he put Horning and Taylor out with clotheslines in 2 consecutive plays.
Doug stopped, grabbed Ernie McMillan, picked him up over his head, and slammed him to the ground. And that's the last we saw Ernie McMillan that day.
I recall vividly 1961 when we opened with the Bears out in Bloomington, Minnesota. The first play of the game, we had a 220-pound left tackle named Grady Alderman. The first play of the game, he picked Alderman, picked him up off his feet and threw him right at our quarterback. Just threw him about 10 yards through the air. He was probably the strongest guy I've ever seen, and he could jump for a big man. He could jump over people.
I've seen him hurdle Bob Vogel. Bob Vogel's 6'5". I've seen Doug leap completely over him.
Atkins was never at a loss for a trick to deceive his enemies, especially those as formidable as Jim Parker of the Colts.
Jim Parker had been a former boxer. He had weighed about 290 pounds, and he was as mobile as a boxer. And he was strong, and there was nobody in football that could beat Jim Parker. The only way Doug knew that he could beat him is if he got Jim mad.
Doug Atkins would sometimes call Jim Parker at the hotel that the Colts were staying and chew Parker out just to get him ready for tomorrow.
I'd wake him up, and we'd have a few cuss words over the phone. He's pretty good. He taught me a few words, too, I tell you.
He would talk about my grandmother, say something about my father, or just something that provoked me. And after he got me aroused, then he thought he could play better football.
I beat him a lot of times, but I'd start talking to him. And the ball be snapped, I'd be gone.
His voice, he would just continually to talk the whole ball game, yakety, yakety, yak. You know, your grandmother didn't have but one shoe or something like that, and I would get so mad at him, and I would just fight him, and I forget about what I'm supposed to do, and put the play John and call, and the starting counting and everything, and before you know it, we got a battle going.
In 1967, Atkins was traded to New Orleans, where the Saints hoped to squeeze one more good season out of his battered 37-year-old body. Instead of one good year, they got 3 great ones.
What's old? I hear coaches say, so we got these young kids. Hey, the young kid can't play, he's no good. I'd have the old man with 2 years left and a young man with 10, he can't play. So I think I hear them on TV now, this young. I mean, it's good to be young, but I was a lot better football player at 39 than I was 23.
In 1968, Doug received the first Vince Lombardi Award, given to the most dedicated player in the game. At the awards banquet, he wore a tuxedo for the first time, a tailor-made one, size 56 long. In 1969, Big Doug finally retired, and not even a Hollywood scriptwriter could have written a more fitting end to his career. On his very last play as a pro, Doug Atkins sacked the quarterback.
It's the Dale and Dale show.
ESPN welcomes you to the following presentation of the National Football League.
It's hard to picture Sid without Esther.
She made Coach Bill. She was just the perfect lady.
The perfect lady and the perfect marriage. The Berge family, brothers are forever. And they went to college together. He married his friend from high school. Now, they are teammates again. Confused? Well, stay tuned for Family Ties today on NFL Films Presents.